So let me just start back over by saying my name's Sam Brager. I'm the outreach coordinator for the Utah Lake Commission, and I'll be handling this presentation tonight. What I was explaining before is that we're hoping to hit just on a little bit, some highlights on the past, the present, and the future of the lake, some things specifically to angling and fishing at the lake, but also some other fun info too. If you have any questions during it, if you would put them in the chat or just save them until the end, I want to make sure we can get through all this information. And for anybody that watches the recording afterwards or listens to it, by all means, feel free to reach out to us with any questions as well, okay? Well, let's get started here. So as I said, we're going to cover the past, the present, the future. We're going to talk about the good and the bad, because Utah Lake has a lot of great potential and it has some wonderful things, but it definitely needs some work and some care as well. However, first I want to start by introducing our agency, just in case you haven't heard of the Utah Lake Commission. All of these logos around it are our member agencies. So we have state representation, local representation, the county, 15 cities, the water district. They all have a representative on our board, all committed to that idea of collaboration. That's why the commission was created in 2007, was to help all of these different groups and also others, the public, businesses, nonprofits, and others, to work together to protect and enhance the lake. So as you can see, our main goals and objectives center around communication and coordination, promoting usage and protection of the resource, maintaining and developing recreation access, monitoring and promoting responsible economic development, finding balance in that development, and encouraging and promoting multiple uses of the lake. So when we think of the lake, this is what we think of. These pictures you see, these gorgeous pictures of the sunsets at the lake and the ice stacks and paddle boarding and fishing and paragliding and all these other amazing things. That's what the commission sees in the lake, is the beauty and the potential that it has. Now, it's been that way for a long time. In the past, we're going to hit on a few highlights, and these all pull from a documentary that was made about Utah Lake back in, I believe it was 2009, done by the June Sucker Recovery Program, called Utah Lake Legacy. It's a 57-minute documentary. It's on YouTube. We'll have the link available on our YouTube recording of this video, as well as links to all of the other items that we'll be hitting on that are relevant online. We'll make those available. But the history we're pulling from is from that video. So the good memories, right? The good things about the lake. It was a source of food. So I want to see if we can get a YouTube clip here to play in the audio. Hopefully it works out okay. There's just a quick minute, 20-second talking about how important fishing was to life here after European settlement, and obviously before as well. Okay, can we hear any audio on that? I'm not hearing anything on my end. Anyone a comment? So you hearing audio? Can anybody hear any audio on that end?
No.
Oh, okay. John, hey, thank you again for saving me on that. Well, in the sake of time, I don't think we're going to be able to go over it. But the documentary itself is broken up into chapters on our YouTube channel too. So this is the 6-minute video that talks about fishing specifically, talks about just how important it was at that time. In the summer of, I think it was 1848 is when they first organized the first fishing company. And that was right around the time that the settlers had the big issue with crickets eating their crops, and there was no food. And so they organized fishing companies, one of which, the Loy family, still fishes Utah Lake till this day. In the video, they interview Bill Loy Sr., who's the 3rd generation of their family fishing on Utah Lake, and his son, the 4th generation, Bill Loy Jr. Now, both of them have actually passed on since this video was made, and it is Bill Loy Jr.'s son, I believe Jordan's his name now, is the 5th generation of the Loy family fishing on the lake. So really cool video. For today, we will skip past it, but again, the link will be in there. We want to make sure you check those out. I'm disappointed though, because one of our other things is an exciting clip I'll have to share later too. The next thing about fishing though, there's a great article that we were clued into that's actually a BYU research article about the history of fish at the lake. It talks about the status, and this was written in 1981, I believe it was. And they did an analysis of all of the efforts to manage the fishery at the lake. They talk about the status of the native fish at that time, the different types of fish that were introduced, and some other information like the history of the fisheries. Here's a couple screenshots showing you that information, which is kind of fun because you'll notice on the next slide here, you'll see some familiar ones here at the top. You've got carp introduced in 1882, 200 young carp introduced in the ponds near Jordan River. And the fate, this is their fate column, was successful. The population rapidly expanded until very abundant in Utah Lake and lower inlet streams. You'll also see catfish shows up on here. So this document is a great resource for learning about the history of fish in the lake. So we do have the link in the presentation you saw there. We listed right here on the page. However, we'll make sure that is available to you afterwards in the YouTube video description and also on the podcast. So the history of the fish was really interesting to learn about. Next being the history of the Utah Lake as a source of entertainment and leisure and relaxation. Again, I had a clip in there, but apparently our audios decided to not function. But that clip actually talked about one of my favorite stories to do with the lake, which is the SS Showboat, which is a flat-bottomed boat that was made by two friends. It could float in as little as 18 inches of water. Now, this boat was pretty unique. It held upwards of 200 people at a time. It had a full orchestra, a restaurant and dance hall, and it would go out regularly. In fact, in the Utah Lake Legacy video, I believe it's the grandson or son, it might be the son, I believe, of the builder of the ship or of the boat, who said that towards the end of the time that they were doing the SS Showboat on the lake, it was booked for like a year or something, maybe 2 years, he said. It was at least a year in advance to try and get tickets and get out on the boat. So very popular. There were also a lot of resorts out on the lake. In the Utah Lake Legacy video and in the book, the PDF version, you can see the map that shows where all of those were. The big three were Provo Resort, Geneva Resort, and as you'll see, the Saratoga Springs Resort actually was the last one to close, and that was in the 1980s. There were other parts to history of entertainment and relaxation at the lake. Motorboat races, although some might say that's not as relaxing, maybe a little more energized. But other cool things, there were some unique parts to the history and the entertainment there, like a boxing match held at the bottom of the lake, or a giant slide at Geneva Resort, and pools that were actually heated by the hot springs that bleed into the lake. So here's a couple of pictures for that. You've got the picture of the boxing match. So I like to phrase that way because people think, somebody's boxing in the water or something. But this is actually when the lake dried up during the Dust Bowl era. Two guys went out and had a boxing match at the center of the lake. And the photo on the left is of the giant flume slide at Geneva Resort. That was a great attraction there that pulled a lot of people to come visit that resort. So a lot of great history in the lake, good memories in the lake, but I do want to make sure we hit on some of the bad history, if you will, the past abuses that have happened. Now, ponder, if you would, for a second, when you think of abuse at Utah Lake, what comes to mind, right? When we talk with people, our staff, a lot of people mention things like Geneva Resort. They talk about the wastewater that got just left right in the lake without being treated. And a variety of other things, agricultural runoff and such. There are some, though, there's a lot of information that people don't maybe realize. In fact, I pulled a quote from Utah Lake Legacy that says the abuse of Utah Lake's tributaries and ecosystem began earlier than most people realize. Now, from the documentary as well, I highlighted a few of the abuses that are listed there. Beginning in the 1890s and continuing in the 1950s, raw sewage was drained into the creeks and streams that flowed into the lake. There was no wastewater treatment plant. This is long before the Clean Water Act came out. Back in the 1880s, sugar mills deposited their waste from processing sugar beets into the tributaries and the Jordan River. Sawmills were guilty too. Instead of shipping off their sawdust, they just let it go into the lake and it would go into the rivers. It would get into the gills of fish and suffocate them. Fertilizer runoff into drainage ditches, unscreened irrigation ditches carried thousands of fish onto farmers' fields to die. And then steel plants such as Geneva were accused of severely polluting the water as well. So there was a lot of abuse that went wrong at the lake. The issue, though, is that oftentimes people think that's still the case today. And there's been a lot of great research going on. In fact, we'll mention one project later that is doing active research right now to determine effects of those kinds of things and others upon the lake to try and see what kind of other recovery efforts can be done. Now, moving more towards the present, I want to hit on some of these current issues, right? So we've got algae blooms, fishing advisories, invasive vegetation, invasive fish species, and limited access and amenities that we want to hit on tonight. So algae blooms, there's a lot of great information here. As far as algae blooms go, there are some basic information that's good to know about how algae blooms work, green algae versus blue-green algae, et cetera. We won't hit too much on tonight, but there's a great website. I'll move forward a slide so you can see it there. We will have this link available afterwards as well. It's a great website from the State Department of Environmental Quality that talks about blooms and educates about them. But as far as I want you to know for sure tonight, the know before you go. This is an approach that's used across the state with state parks, Department of Environmental Quality, county health departments, and others, as far as it goes to algae bloom, as well as, algae blooms, as well as snow conditions and other conditions to know and educate and learn before you go visit these places in the wild, right? So the first thing that we talk about with algae blooms at Utah Lake is where is or are the blooms? Second is what is an advisory? What does that mean? And third, what's being done to help? And that's where we'll talk about that ULWQS is the Utah Lake Water Quality Study, and we'll hit on that study a little bit later. So first, know where a bloom is. So this is a screenshot of the state website in the top right corner, habs.utah.gov. That's harmful algal blooms.utah.gov. This is the one statewide resource that everybody gets sent to. Anybody from the public is sent to this website to find more information. It's where you'll find the about us or the about algae blooms information I mentioned. And most importantly that I'm talking about now is this map. When you get onto this page, all those blue dots are all the various water bodies across the state that the Division of Water Quality monitors for algae blooms. In fact, in the last 5 years, I believe it's 47 water bodies across Utah had algae blooms at some point. So a lot of people think this is a Utah Lake issue. It's not. I mean, it's not even a Utah issue. It's a national and international issue. But only in Utah, 47 different water bodies. That includes the Virgin River down at Zion National Park was a big one in the news recently. Deer Creek, Jordanelle, all of these other lakes, which frankly, in my opinion, are more popular than Utah Lake, they also deal with algae blooms. So when you go to this map, you can see where are there blooms across the state. The nice thing is that at Utah Lake, an algae bloom might not mean the whole lake. As large as Utah Lake is, and the technology that the Division of Water Quality has, they sample in several different areas and they inform us and the public as to where the blooms are. It can be inside of one marina only. It can be the entire lake. Know where the bloom advisory applies, because if it doesn't apply to the full lake, you can go to the areas that are not under advisory just fine for recreation. And they monitor for that and they update that throughout the summer season. So the second thing we wanted you to know about algae blooms, understand advisories, what they mean. There's typically two kinds of advisories. There's technically a third, but the third one is simply, it's algae bloom season, watch for algae blooms, right? Meaning it's the summertime, especially in a drought, for instance, in those kind of conditions, there could be blooms, so be cautious, right? The two most common though are warning and danger. Let's hit on danger first, because that's real easy. It doesn't happen very often. That means that levels of bacteria are high enough, or levels of the toxins that they give off in a harmful algal bloom are high enough that you should not go out to the lake. You shouldn't go in the water at all. Now that doesn't happen lake-wide. The last time was back in 2016, excuse me. Since then, it's only been marinas that have had closures. More commonly, a warning is what occurs. Now, looking at a warning sign, looking at the explanation, it's really some recommendations for your safety. So the first one is do not swim or water ski in this area, wherever that bloom is. That's great common sense. They don't want you in the water for a long time, and they don't want you accidentally ingesting water. And if any of you water ski as bad as I would, you'd probably be ingesting a lot of water. So they don't recommend you swim or water ski in the area of a bloom. The next one down, you'll notice it says avoid areas of algae scum when boating. Boating is not prohibited during an algae bloom. They do recommend that you take caution. And they have pictures on their website and on some of the signs at the lakes, so you know what to look for, so that when you go out boating, you can still drive around, you can sail, you can kayak, canoe and such, but you should avoid signs of blooms. And then the next three are really self-explanatory. Keep your animals away to make sure they're not ingesting it. Don't drink the water yourself. Please don't drink lake water, any lake water, anytime, even if there isn't a bloom. Please don't. And then again, for angling specifically, clean your fish well and discard the guts. So if you're going to eat it, you can during a warning advisory. They just recommend that you clean it well and discard the guts. So it is still possible to go fishing, especially if you're not going to be eating it. And if you are eating it, you can do so according to those guidelines. So some great information to have on understanding what an advisory means. And then, as I said, the last thing was know what's being done. We're going to hit on that one a little bit later about the Utah Lake Water Quality Study. The next thing in regards to fishing that I wanted to hit on is the fishing advisories for the state. This great link here at the top. I'm going to open this up and hopefully you guys can see it. It's basically the website for the state for any water body, any fish species, any contaminant here you can see on the left that you can search. So if you go by water body, you click by water body, you click on Utah Lake, you drop down, it tells you these are the species you need to be aware of. You can do the same thing for any of the other 40 plus water bodies in Utah that have an advisory of some kind. But to sum it up for you here, we put it here on the slide. So Utah Lake, the only advisory is for high level of PCBs that have been found in carp and channel catfish from Utah Lake. Utah public health officials recommend that adults eat no more than 1 4-ounce serving of these fish per month. Pregnant women, nursing mothers, and children should not eat carp or channel catfish taken from Utah Lake. Pretty straightforward and self-explanatory. A lot of people find that surprising, that it doesn't have to do with something else, it's PCBs. And they also find it surprising it's only those 2 species. But that's based off of research they've done that's available on their website. So it's a great resource to go for any water body you want to go fishing at in Utah. But as far as Utah Lake goes, you can eat any of the fish in Utah Lake. The only 2 that have an advisory for limiting that consumption is channel catfish and carp. Now, another issue that's currently faced at the lake right now is invasive vegetation. If any of you have been down to the shoreline of Utah Lake in recent years, you've seen this view, which is Phragmites in your face. It's this tall reed with those tufts at the top, and it is a serious problem at Utah Lake. We listed a few of those issues of what Phragmites, how it affects the lake negatively. It actually contributes to lower lake levels. Phragmites, compared to other native comparable vegetation, use more water. They're a fire hazard. I'm sure if you just looked up fire at Utah Lake in the last 5 years, you've probably seen 2 or 3 articles about fires in the Phragmites. There's a loss of habitat. A lot of animals cannot exist in that. Birds can't nest, animals can't access it because it grows so tightly knit. I don't know about you, but I've actually gotten lost in the Phragmites before and it's not fun. They're also mosquito habitat. They block out other native plants from being able to come in. And as I mentioned, they block the shoreline access and impede the view of the lake. I mean, we showed some beautiful photos of the lake, and you can't see those if it's blocked by Phragmites. So Phragmites is definitely a current issue, and we'll talk later about how that's being addressed. Other current issues, invasive fish species, carp and northern pike being the biggest ones right now. There's been a lot of great efforts on carp over the last several decades, and northern pike issues have recently started after that species was illegally introduced within the last decade, they suspect. We're not going to hit too much on the fish species recovery efforts right now because Thursday's Zoom workshop is going to be done by the June Sucker Recovery Program, and they'll talk very specifically about the history of those recovery efforts and current and ongoing efforts. But moving on from there, another issue now is limited access and limited amenities. As you can see, some of the access points are not in the greatest shape. The bottom right corner is the Lincoln Beach Marina, which is so shallow. Back in 2016, those are birds standing on the lake bottom, sticking their heads in the water. Like there's inches of water in that marina. The fencing at some of the access points that are more remote for hunters and anglers has been damaged. The boat ramps are overgrown and worn out. So there's been a lot of issues, and most of these issues all circle back to a lack of funding. Utah Lake has not had a permanent ongoing funding source. The good news is there is funding that's become available in recent years, albeit it's one-time funding, and that can be kind of spotty in grants, and that's spotty whether you get them or not. But there are hopes for change in the future to try and improve that situation and provide the tools to be able to help the lake recover faster and be able to improve it for recreational access and its other uses. However, I did want to put one caveat on the limited access amenities. A lot of people just don't realize how many access points there are. Utah Lake has 27 public access points, 5 of which are marinas. There's a handful of beaches, and then the most of them are hunter-angler access. So there's a great page on our website, the access points page, that has a map in Google Maps that you can actually open if you're accessing the website on your phone. If you tap on one of the pins that's on the map for the access points, you can actually get directions directly on your phone to that access point to help you out. And there's it's a great way to get to know the lake. In fact, we've had a challenge with people before to drive all the way around the lake and visit all 27. Definitely an all-day type thing, but a lot of fun. Some people have really enjoyed doing that drive. Okay, so now with the current issues, I wanted to hit some on the current projects, things that are being done right now, work that's being done, funding that's been made available to help the lake and to improve the lake. So first being the Utah Lake Water Quality Study. So this is a partnership between the Utah Lake Commission and the Division of Water Quality for the state, partnered with, I believe it's 14 other stakeholders, everywhere from the cities to the wastewater treatment plants, federal entities like U.S. Fish and Wildlife, Central Utah Water Conservancy District, that's our drinking water district here, and many others, to try and find long-term solutions for the lake. Now, they focus this study around the 3 management goals of the lake, which are aquatic life, recreation, and agricultural and secondary water. And the way the study works is they're evaluating long-term approaches, as I mentioned. What I mean by that is not just treating an algae bloom once it happens, and they are doing some research on that, but trying to investigate and look at as many factors as possible that contribute to nutrients at the lake. Phosphorus and nitrogen, which occur naturally in the environment. There's a variety of sources to the lake: wastewater treatment plants, rivers, air deposition, bringing it in from storms, fertilizer runoff, lawn fertilizer runoff, agricultural runoff. There's a whole bunch of sources, but they're trying to look at all of these sources and doing research on what the lake used to be like, what it could be like, and then weighing the costs and the benefits to trying to determine, with how much money we put in, what kind of effect can we have. So here's kind of a chart to help you understand that. And we're looking at that middle line is the current Utah Lake, where it is today. That if there were no nutrient controls, that's obviously the lowest cost, right? No regulation, no further need for upgrades at the wastewater treatment plants or any other efforts. But it also means the lake's going to degrade further. The rule that was implemented in 2015 for phosphorus reduction does improve things a little bit. And that's where you get where lake is today, right? Versus what the study's outcome is going to be is the lower portion of the graph, which is various nutrient reduction scenarios. So they will propose various scenarios with various costs and the various estimated outcomes to try and help policymakers determine, okay, if we spend X dollars and we're going to improve the lake by 90% versus we spend double X dollars and we go to 95%, well, let's only spend X dollars and get 90% improvement because that's our best bang for our buck, right? So they'll produce several scenarios to help inform a good decision at reducing nutrient levels in the lake in order to reduce the frequency and severity of algae blooms at the lake. And that's the biggest issue people have or are concerned about with the lake right now. So I hope you understand that you should check on where an algae bloom advisory applies to, what part of the lake, understand what that advisory means, what activities you can still participate in, and also understand that there's a lot of great work being done, both short-term and long-term, in trying to fix this issue with the lake and help it. And unfortunately, we don't have a ton of time to cover all of it, but we'll make sure we have other opportunities to learn more specifically about each of these topics that we're covering today. Another great project that's going on right now is called the Walkara Way Conservation Project. Basically, this covers a large chunk of the Orem and Vineyard and Provo shoreline. And this project is a 1,000-acre footprint, if you will, and a partnership between private landowners and 25 or more government agencies, all trying to restore this section of shoreline and improve its access. So you'll notice in the picture, this shows where they have fencing right now. They're using cattle to graze that Phragmites as a more sustainable and environmentally friendly approach to Phragmites treatment. And you can see where they've been grazing versus where they haven't been grazing is a pretty stark contrast as those cattle eat Phragmites as it's young and fresh. So a great project. There'll be more details coming. In fact, if you're available this Saturday, you can look up on Facebook, the Walkara Way Conservation Project. They have a Facebook group. And this Saturday, they're doing a project tour. You can bring your mud boots if you want, and you can actually go down and walk the project and learn from the gentleman who's spearheading that effort. His name's Jake Holdaway, one of the families that's been in the Vineyard and Orem area for a long time, for several generations. So a great opportunity on Saturday to learn more about that. If you're interested in that one, if you can't find it, feel free to shoot me an email and I can help you find the link to get the details on that site tour. There are also some great funding opportunities that have arisen, albeit one-time funding, but still amazing that they're happening in recent years. And one of those, we have to thank Utah County for their tourism dollars. Some of the county commissioners have been very supportive of Utah Lake and have allocated funding to help some of the projects at the lake happen. There's a lot of great ideas and designs that have been done and engineering that's been done for projects at the lake that there's just no money to pursue actually implementing. So with the tourism dollars back in 2020 and 2021, Utah County allocated money for 3 different projects at the lake. This is one of them, which is Saratoga Springs Marina on the south end of Saratoga, at sometimes called the Pelican Bay Marina. They're actually going to expand the marina and add an entire 3rd jetty with a day use area that's for paddle boarding and swimming and such without motorized sports in it, and some park areas and such. That's going to be coming in the next several years with tourism dollars to help supplement that and make that a reality. So that's a great one that's coming in to improve that marina. Another marina being improved with the tourism dollars is American Fork Marina. They have plans to repave their entire structure and take that pavement most of the way out along the jetty and improve that as well. If anybody's been out there recently, it's pretty rough. They're also going to do things like put in a concessionaire area, expand their beach, expand the parking lot, et cetera, that you can see in this image. So some really great plans there. They also got funding to work on. And the third one from that funding allotment was the Vineyard Shoreline. Now, all of these plans that I'm showing are all conceptual, meaning there are probably going to be some changes. Don't be surprised if it's a little bit different when it actually gets implemented, right? And if there's one that's more of interest to you, you can reach out to us or reach out to that marina and find out more details. But the Vineyard Shoreline, they're in the process of master planning their entire shoreline because they want to involve and engage their community with the lake. So they're working on all kinds of things from improved trails and educational signage and parks. And they want to put in a sand barrier so that people can play and install some beaches. It's going to be a great amenity at the lake. So we're excited to see where that one goes. Some other funding opportunities that came up, more one-time funding again. Last year, there was a legislative appropriation, thanks to Representative Brady Brammer, that brought over, I think it was $9.8 million to Utah Lake to help the lake. And this is a little bit of a breakdown on how that worked. $2.6 million went to marina enhancements. American Fork City Marina got some additional dollars to help with their tourism funding that they got to do their parking lot and utilities to the area. Saratoga Springs got some additional money to add additional features, which I'll show you in a second. They're also investigating and acquiring the resources for a second marina in Saratoga Springs. I hope you're all listening to that. That's been a concern from a lot of people, is that the only Saratoga marina, the one on the west side, is all the way on the south. And then you don't have anything until you hit American Fork. Now they're going to be putting one in near the mouth of the Jordan River, and I believe I've got a slide on that one as well. Linden Marina also got some dollars to enhance their marina, and there's a project that the commission, Utah Lake Commission, is doing that I'll also speak to later. There was also dollars for shoreline restoration, trying to improve shoreline access and get rid of vegetation and enhance trails. The Walkara Way Conservation Project received a significant appropriation of $5.4 million in order to start its legal work and design work and getting started on the trail that will go all the way through from Provo up to Vineyard. So a lot of great work in the legislative appropriations. So again, American Fork, they got some additional dollars for working on their marina. This is a conceptual image of the North Marina at Saratoga Springs. So this is just east of the inlet park and the inlet to the Jordan River. It's on a property that used to belong to the McLaughlin family, was a private marina at some point in the past. But they are working on designs right now and trying to plan what that marina could look like, bringing in a 6th marina at the lake. So we're very excited to see that happening. The Saratoga Springs existing marina, as I mentioned, received additional dollars. You'll notice in this image, there's now more grass showing and more parking. Those were additional amenities that the residents were asking for, was more parking, as parking is pretty limited, and additional park amenities and day use facilities for them there. So with the combination of the tourism dollars, tourism tax dollars, and the legislative appropriation, it's really going to enable that project to move forward. So we're excited for that. Now, other online or ongoing projects, shoreline restoration. This is getting rid of the Phragmites that you see there in the photo with the marsh master in the front. So the program has evolved over the years. In the past, I'm going to skip ahead to a slide here. The map on the left shows you there were, I believe it was 10 different areas at the lake, treatment areas, and they tried to hit at least 1 or 2 every year, and they kind of went round robin around the lake. That was determined to be ineffective. That was all they could do at the time with money, and it was great work, but there was a lot of regrowth. So instead, as you see on the chart on the right, the program was expanded and developed. We worked with some researchers out of Utah State University to develop a more intensive program. They suggested that we designate a priority area at the lake, which we did, which is basically the northern half, where you see the most people at the lake and closest in proximity. Treat that entire shoreline for 3 to 5 years over and over again with an herbicide treatment and mowing treatment, and then begin the work of trying to revegetate with the vegetation we do want. So since 2018, when we met with the researchers, this project has evolved over and over again until this year's kind of a watermark one. I couldn't find a good chart to show you, but this, for the first year ever, the entire lake is being treated. And to help you understand, that's 8,000 miles or 8,000 acres, excuse me, of shoreline that needs attention. Now, there's been a lot of success in how we've seen how much Phragmites has reduced. We'll go back a couple slides here to some of the enhancements over the years. Buying Marshmaster machines, which are semi-aquatic vehicles that can tow mowing equipment and smashing equipment with them. That helps to break down the Phragmites to improve recreational access, to remove the block of a view, and also speed along decomposition. So those are great machines that were acquired a few years ago. And then the drone and this kind of funny colored picture that are on here. This is the most recent adaptation of the plan, which is this year we applied for grant dollars, and this program is funded exclusively off grant dollars every year. So we want to say thank you to the Division of Wildlife Resources Wetland Restoration Initiative, and also the Utah Department of Agriculture and Food and other partners on this project. But the plan now, as Phragmites regrowth has gone lower and lower, the Marshmasters and the helicopter that does the spraying are targeting less and less Phragmites. They can get the really big swaths and big chunks of frag, but there's also areas that are too close to homes or that are up on a hillside that the Marshmaster can't climb up, that are harder to get to. So this year, the application included a request to purchase an agricultural drone that can apply herbicide with accuracy that is seriously impressive. The helicopter is already pretty impressive in how accurate that is, but he has to keep a 100-foot buffer from anything we want to keep: desirable vegetation, homes, lawns, people, pets. This drone can fly right in 5 to 10 feet above the plants and drop herbicide right on it when it's got good stuff like cattails and stuff right next to it. So those are areas we're gonna be able to target unlike before. And the funky looking colored image here is a second drone that's being purchased that has what's called multispectral cameras. It has a camera that sees in different infrareds and other light zones. Excuse me. So it can actually identify different types of vegetation and map it out. And then the other agricultural drone follows behind a day or two after they've done the mapping and can target all those hot spots of Phragmites. So really exciting to see how this program has developed over the years and the successes that it has had. As I mentioned before, we won't talk too much about the June sucker recovery efforts. I did just want to hit on that they have been doing an amazing job on carp removal. They removed in the neighborhood of 30 million pounds of carp in the last 12 years. Been some great efforts. There's some restoration projects they've done as well. The Hobble Creek restoration is the picture in the bottom right corner, which was done several years ago. A great way, and it's a great spawning area for fish now. The bottom left corner is the Provo River Delta restoration project, another very exciting one that's going on right now. But we will allow the June sucker program to hit more on those. But those are great lasting efforts for not only the June sucker, but also the habitat in general for the lake, recreational access being improved as well as helping the other species, both fish and bird and insect alike at the lake. Now, as far as the future goes, the future of the lake, we wanted to hit on or highlight a couple of exciting developments that are coming. Obviously, again, just like with the present and the past, we can't hit on everything. So I'm happy to take questions at the end, and there will be other opportunities to learn more about the lake in the future. For the future, we want to hit on 4 particular things. The first being the Utah Lake Trail Plan. There is a plan, an effort concerted with the commission and all the other cities and the county and others to do one continuous trail all the way around Utah Lake. Okay, now this close-up shows the northern half of the lake, which is kind of the priority. Brown is completed, pink is planned, and yellow is conceptual. So the pink ones that are circled in red on this in the Orem and Provo area, Vineyard, and then up into Linden, American Fork, and Lehigh, and in Saratoga, those are all scheduled for completion within the next 1 to 5 years. The Walkara Way project already got its fully funded between now and 2023. It receives the rest of its funding. So that one's really exciting. The big pink section that goes from Linden Marina all the way over to North Lake Park in Lehigh, right on the border of Lehigh and Saratoga. That section also got funded in 2023 by Mountain Land Association of Governments in order to get that section of trail in as well. So we're very excited to see the trail continuing to move forward and more sections connecting so there can be a better ride. Eventually, you'll be able to ride a trail from Utah Lake, connecting into all the city trails around it, and eventually to all the 3 counties, Utah County, Wasatch County, and I forget our third, Salt Lake County, sorry. Be able to go Jordan River Trail, the Provo River Parkway, Murdoch Canal Trail. Those will all tie in, and all the others into this lake. So we're very excited about that. Another one I wanted to mention, this was just published today, was the Utah Lake Authority Bill, HB 232. Again, we'll have a link so that you can learn more about it in the description section of the YouTube video. Representative Brady Brammer is the sponsor of this bill. Just published today. He mentioned that if you wanted, it's a long bill, 600 or something lines of text. But the 2 most important parts for understanding what the authority is that he's proposing are sections 202 and 203, which are the authority and powers section and policies and objectives. Basically, Representative Brammer is proposing this bill to create an entity that has a bigger shovel to take care of the lake. The Utah Lake Commission has done a great job of working with what resources have been available to us. As I mentioned tonight in our presentation, one issue has been ongoing funding, or I should say the lack thereof. One premise behind the Utah Lake Authority would be to provide ongoing funding in order to keep the ball rolling at the lake and keep things moving forward instead of relying solely on grants or legislative appropriations. So definitely you can learn more about that by reading through the bill online. One that we're very excited about is the Division of Wildlife Resources recently began work on forming a Utah Lake Fishing Advisory Committee. So the plan behind this committee is working with a bunch of anglers, the Utah Lake Commission, and some other stakeholders to develop a plan for managing the fishery that supports June sucker conservation, but also offers a diversity of fishing opportunities, as well as advises the fishery managers at DWR on actions to address issues and concerns. So this is something that couldn't really happen up until last year when the June sucker was downlisted from endangered to threatened. Because of that progress, there's a loosening of the regulations around it, and they're able to look at managing it. So I'm very excited to share that news and cannot wait to participate in that committee so that we can help provide a great experience. So if you have more questions about that, the meetings have not started yet. We'll be having our first meeting soon. But definitely there'll be opportunities to listen in and to contribute to that. We'd love to be a resource in helping anglers find a good balance in the needs and the wants for fishing at the lake. Another exciting program that is set to launch this spring is the Utah Lake Life Jacket Loaner Program. The plan is to have a lake-wide loaner program. Right now, Utah Lake State Park in Provo has a Life Jacket Loaner Program. You can go into their visitor center and grab one. And most state parks across the state have one. But there isn't one at the rest of the lake. I think Saratoga Springs might have a stand, but I believe that was an Eagle project. So Utah Lake Commission is launching 7 access points. Will have stations to begin, and hopefully we can expand it in the future. But people can borrow those life jackets and return them and use them as needed to try and improve water safety and make life jackets available, readily accessible for people. There's been a lot of great donations in support of the program so far, both monetarily and life jackets that are going on. So we're excited to have more news on that coming up in the following months. Now, I did want to hit on some other projects that are maybe a little bit further out, not quite in the works or just barely getting started. One being the Marina Camera Network. I mentioned this was actually made possible thanks to the legislative appropriation. And this idea actually came from a Utah Lake enthusiast, guys boats at the lake quite a bit, of doing live video feeds at all 5 public marinas. So the marina shown here is the Saratoga Springs City Marina as an example. And then the image on the right is the map showing it's lake-wide across all 5 marinas. The plan is that on our website, it will host views of the parking conditions, boat ramps, the launch areas, and hopefully water conditions of the lake, so that anybody could sign on and pick which marina they want to go to, check on conditions like ice conditions, I know is a popular question, or algae bloom conditions, sometimes a popular question in the summer. As well as these cameras will also provide tracking data. Surprised to say there is no visitation data at the marinas. Besides trying to check revenues and such, there's no accurate count of what visitation is like at the lake. And so we hope that that can help inform decisions and be able to help the projects have guidance on where visitation is best and how we can allocate the funding available to care for and improve the lake. So we're very excited about this one. It was fully funded thanks to a state parks motorboat access grant and the legislative appropriation. And with that funding, we are right now just finalizing agreements with the marinas on where the cameras are going and getting them hooked up for power and et cetera. Construction should be starting on this one actually by next week. So this one's right in the near future. We're very excited about it. One other one's coming up, the Provo River Delta Restoration Project, meaning this one's already in work. They started spring of 2020. It will not be completed until the end of 2024. So right now they're doing a lot of great dredging work, creating the channels and the ponds. If you go to their website, which will have the links available again, you can visit and learn more about that project, and the June Sucker program will hit a lot more on this one as well. Now, one specifically for anglers that would be of interest, Utah Lake Commission just submitted a grant request to DWR's Habitat Council grant program, and that's for dollars for trying to enhance recreational access for hunters and anglers. So we selected 5 out of our 27 access points that were hunter and angler access points we felt were in need of attention. So Swede Lane, Mulberry Beach, Milepost 13, also known as Mesita Acres, Mill Race, and Lincoln Point. And the repairs and enhancements that we listed that we would like those grant dollars for are going to include some or the following or all of the following. It's kind of a mix and match between what each access point needs. But regrading the roads, like Mill Race, if anybody's been to Mill Race recently, the boat ramp got enhanced. We're hoping to actually enhance it further into a concrete boat ramp, but the road in is horrendous. It's terrible. I almost got a flat tire in my sedan going out there the other day. So grading the roads and the parking areas, putting in some concrete boat ramps at some of the areas, repairing and replacing some of the fencing, improving the signage so people know where to go at the access points. At Lincoln Point, they're hoping to do some fire rings, some basic amenities for dispersed camping possibly there. And we're also looking to remove some more invasive vegetation, the trees like tamarisk and Russian olives that are encroaching on trails and blocking boat access for hunters and anglers to get out on the lake. So we do not know yet. We won't know for a couple of weeks at least if we get those dollars, but that if we receive those dollars would be a project that would start later this summer. So to sum things up, past, present, and future, Utah Lake has had its share of issues and it's had its share of abuses. And there are definitely things today that still need to be addressed. There's great work being done to try and address each of those, but it's a big issue to tackle. And that's why they created the commission. And I believe that's why Representative Brammer wants to create the authority, is trying to further support this idea of collaborative efforts to care for the lake and improve the lake and enhance it for current generations and future generations. Now, as the photos I displayed here, again, I want to finish by reminding you of what Utah Lake has to offer. It has such great beauty and recreational access and wonderful, wonderful amenities to be offered. There are negatives that need to be addressed. There's great work being done, but in the meantime, there's a lot of great things you can learn about from this presentation, from participating in the Fish Fest. There's a lot of great resources out there. Some people like to ask us how to get involved. You can learn more about the lake. Learn about the commission and the efforts that are going on. So you can go to our website, and I've got a few resources I'll show on the next slide. You can volunteer with the commission. We have a lot of volunteer opportunities, everywhere from our Adopt a Shoreline program, helping keep the shoreline clean of litter, to helping with some of our events or our outreach efforts, communicating with people. You can attend Utah Lake related public meetings. There are quarterly governing board meetings for the Utah Lake Commission. There's monthly technical committee meetings, and there are special meetings that we do, workshops like this, where you can learn more about what's going on. You can also have the commission come do a presentation at your group, your club, your business, however you want to. We've done that many times, and our staff is happy to do it. Presentations like this one or on other related topics. And then last but not least, sharing with your friends and family. Now, for what to share or where you can learn more yourself, First and foremost, our website, utahlake.org, is the official website of Utah Lake and has great information on things to do, history, research being done, projects that are going on, events that are happening, all kinds of information to do at the lake. We're also on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. We do have an e-newsletter that you can subscribe to. There's also our podcast. That's something that I really enjoy hosting, is the Utah Lake Facts, Fiction, and Fun podcast, which talks all about the facts, fiction, and fun of Utah Lake. So it's a fun one to be able to listen into. There's also the Utah Lake Legacy documentary that I shared. It's a great hour-long video. Pop some popcorn, snuggle up with a blanket with a friend or family, and enjoy that video and learn about how valuable Utah Lake is to the valley and to the community. So I really appreciate everybody who tuned in to be able to listen in tonight, and anybody who's watching afterwards as well, feel free to share with others and comment with your questions. But that's everything we've got as far as our slides tonight. I appreciate everyone's patience holding your burning questions until the end. But I will check the chat here and see if we have any other questions real quick. Let's take a look. When starting the, I should have looked for that one earlier on. I'm so sorry. Hopefully everybody heard me okay on audio. It seems we may have had an issue. Tim, hopefully you were able to hear everything I was saying. But are there any questions from anybody who is listening in tonight to do with our presentation or other topics to do with the lake? Well, I'm going to take silence as a good thing. Feel free to comment with questions on the YouTube channel. Feel free to email us. My email is sam@utahlake.org. We're happy to help. You can reach out to us on social media. We really hope you're enjoying the Winter Fish Fest. This workshop is the third of 4 that we'll be having. The next one is Thursday night on the 27th at 7 p.m. I also wanted to put in a special note, and we'll send out an email about this too. We're going to do a special drawing. We've already got the raffle going in the categories, but we're going to do a special drawing for this Saturday, the last day excuse me, the last day of the contest, where if you fish and submit in the drawing on Saturday alone, you'll get entered to win a special photo canvas of one of the images that I showed there. In fact, I think I've got it right here. So the bottom left corner, this photo of all the anglers at the mouth of the Provo River, this photo we have printed off ready to deliver to somebody that'll go from a raffle drawing from that one. So we'll shoot an email out about that so people know, because we want everybody to have a chance to be able to win that. But thank you for participating in the Fish Fest. Thank you for listening in tonight. We hope you enjoyed it, and we hope you have a wonderful evening.